This is Radio Health Journal. I'm Nancy Benson. This week, the colorful world of synesthesia.
Synesthetes just have a different texture of reality. People often say, oh my God, don't they get confused seeing all these extra shapes and colors and things moving around? And the answer is no.
Can blended senses improve creativity and memory? When Radio Health Journal returns.
I'm Reed Pence, the producer and host of Radio Health Journal. If you like listening to Radio Health Journal, you'll also like our sister show, Viewpoints, which covers a wide array of topics, from education to history to the environment. Here's a preview of what they're covering this week on Viewpoints.
Space is something that gives us the opportunity to go someplace larger, see something grander than we possibly can see on Earth.
The billionaire space race. Then,
Western women, they consider themselves mainstream American women who were just taking advantage of the opportunities that the West gave them.
The real movers and shakers of the new frontier. I'm Marty Peterson.
and I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth this week on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
Listen to Radio Health Journal and Viewpoints on your favorite radio station, and subscribe and listen anytime on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Also, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Radio Health Journal.
What color is the sound of my voice? How far away from your head is the month of July? If you can instantly answer these questions, you might be among the 4% of people worldwide with a perceptual trait known as synesthesia. If you're still confused, you're not alone. Unlike anesthesia, which numbs sensation, synesthesia blends the senses, giving people abilities like hearing colors and seeing time and more.
I associate numbers, timelines, dates, and so many other things with the space around me. And so when you say a certain date, for example, I see it out in front of me. I don't visually see it, but it's like in my mind's eye. And that's just how I understand a date.
That's Izzy Kornblau, an aspiring genetic counselor whose YouTube channel discusses health and education. She experiences two forms of synesthesia. The first, called time-space synesthesia, allows her to visualize time in the physical area around her. The second is called grapheme color synesthesia, which connects color to numbers and words.
If you were to say any dates, if you ask me, am I free on this date? If you talk about numbers, I automatically see it in space out in front of me, and it's truly the only way I can understand the meaning behind those dates and those numbers. You know, it's just like you can understand where in time something is. I see the time, but then I also see the space associated with it.
Children with synesthesia might not suspect they see, hear, or feel the world differently. Kornblau was 14 years old when a tutor recognized the trait. In fact, she had just been diagnosed with something else, dyslexia.
She was asking me, when I tell you this word, what other words you associate with it? And I started saying these different images, and she was really confused why I was explaining images and colors. And she asked me a couple other questions, and I was like, why are you asking me this? And she said, I think you have synesthesia. And I was like, what's that? And she explained it to me, and it just totally fit. I had no idea that other people didn't experience that. I was shocked.
Synesthesia is not a disorder. Some synesthetes, like Kornblau, find the trait useful for remembering names or dates. For example, if she struggles to remember someone's full name, it can help to try to recall the colors she associates with a certain letter. This can sound confusing to the average person, but for Kornblau, it helps to reinforce her memory.
My full name is Isabel, and that's very yellow to me. And that's because both I's and L's are yellow. And so right there, you have 3 out of 8 letters yellow. So I'm like, okay, I think this name probably starts with either an I, an L, or a C. I'm trying to think maybe a Y. What could their name be? And it kind of guides me in the right direction. And same thing with, figuring out the dates in history class. I'm like, oh gosh, what year was that, battle? I might be able to figure it out by the color.
Researchers are exploring the effects of synesthesia on memory. One of these scientists is Dr. Richard Cytowic, a clinical professor of neurology at George Washington University. Sytowik has 40 years of experience studying synesthesia. He says it's caused by an increase in cross connections within the brain.
Crosstalk is normal in all brains. I mean, that's why we lip read. That's why even bad ventriloquists can convince us that the dummy is talking. Sight and sound are very highly coupled. In synesthetes, they simply have more of these connections, and they're consciously aware that they do. So we're all synesthetic. We're all synesthetic in a sense. We just aren't aware of it.
Synesthesia is commonly associated with art, creativity, and the ability to think in metaphor. Sytowik says the ability to hear, see, taste, and physically feel a single stimulus like a voice can be a blessing, and several famous artists and musicians throughout history have had it.
So if a synesthete says, I know it's two because it's white, there's something about two-ness and whiteness that is the same, and they are feeling physically this connection between the two. So, and there are a number of synesthetes, famous synesthetes, like the novelist Vladimir Nabokov, composer David Hockney, the painter David Hockney, Vasily Kandinsky, Lady Gaga, Billy Joel. And these people all excel at making metaphors.
So what physically causes these cross connections that result in synesthesia? Sytowik says a number of groups around the world are tracking the genes associated with it. Chromosome 4, which shares its frequency with epilepsy and autism, has already been identified as a genetic marker for the trait. Sytowik says researchers are even trying to develop a DNA-based synesthesia test, but he says that won't happen for a while.
As we get more of these markers, then we'll have what most people think of as, quote, a blood test or a cheek swab of your saliva, and we'll be able to see who carries these things. So it's not quite as available as a pregnancy test or even a COVID test, but it's coming. It's coming.
In the meantime, some people with synesthesia may still think everyone senses the world that way and miss out on connecting with others who also have the trait.
It's very fun to find somebody else who thinks in the same way as you or slightly different because, you know, their colors are going to be different from your colors that you associate with different letters and numbers. And it's so disturbing to hear the colors that other people associate with days of the week or numbers because they're so off from mine. And it's like, ew, like, no, that's not right. It's pretty funny.
Synesthesia can be highly personal for those who have it, from the colors they see in their name to their favorite number. Synesthetes may like or dislike a place simply because of the color that comes to mind from the location. For instance, the name of a grocery store might elicit a negative color. Kornblau says it doesn't stop her from going places, but she tends to dislike locations that evoke reds and yellows together. So what's a positive association?
It's just so weird. I normally never tell this to anybody. It's 1,854, so 1854. I don't understand why, but it's like this amazing accumulation of these greens and these dark, dark purples that somehow fit in really well together. And it's truly just the most beautiful number that when I think about, like, I see it. So it's so pretty. So that's my favorite number, and anything around it makes me kind of happy. I went to Wash U in St. Louis for undergrad, and the school was founded in 1853, which is, you know, one number away, and it just makes me happy.
You can find out more about Izzy Kornblau on her YouTube channel and Dr. Sytowik's work on his website, sytowik.net, or through a link on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. Our writer this week is Scarlett O'Hara. Our studio producer is Jason Dickey. I'm Nancy Benson.
Radio Health Journal returns in just a moment.
With the summer break gear tucked away for the season and new school backpacks at the ready, it's time to be thinking about serving up tasty, healthy meals and snacks for those on-the-go, activity-filled days of fall. Including foods that kids love to eat, like fresh grapes, makes it easier. Registered dietitian Courtney Romano is a health advisor for the California Table Grape Commission.
Stock your kitchen with foods that are easy to eat, travel well, and can serve multiple functions, such as hummus, cheese, fruits, and veggies. For example, heart-healthy grapes can be tossed into yogurt or a breakfast smoothie, packed into lunches or sports bags for a fresh, hydrating snack. A bowl of grapes can serve as an easy side dish to a simple meal of soup and sandwiches.
Grapes from California are a natural source of antioxidants and other polyphenols, With just 90 calories for a 3/4 cup serving, no fat or cholesterol, and virtually no sodium, fresh grapes are a smart choice. Visit grapesfromcalifornia.com for more information.
New studies show for the first time that reducing air pollution may roll back the risk of dementia. Research reported at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference 2021 shows a clear connection between air quality and physical brain changes defining Alzheimer's disease. What's more, reducing fine particulate matter in the air is associated with slower cognitive decline and a 20% reduction in dementia risk. Claire Sexton is Director of Scientific Programs and Outreach at the Alzheimer's Association.
What's exciting is we're now seeing data showing that improving air quality may actually reduce the risk of dementia. Air pollution is bad for our brains and our overall health. This demonstrates the importance of policies and action by both governments and businesses that address air pollution.
Studies were conducted in large populations in the U.S. and France. Sexton says the findings are especially important in urban areas where higher levels of air pollution are common. Find out more at alz.org.
And that's Radio Health Journal for this week. Radio Health Journal is a production of MediaTrax Communications. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more. And check Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify for a library of past programs. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and information about our guests at radiohealthjournal.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Radio Health Journal.
Coming up next week on Radio Health Journal.
How do I not feel shame and guilt every single day? The magnitude of making that decision and then living with it is almost impossible.
For birth mothers in adoptions, stigma and silence persist.
Then, what medical symptoms really mean and why we often overreact to them.
It's very easy to fall into the rabbit hole where you start off with a relatively benign symptom and you end up freaked out that you have some horrible disease.
All that and more on Radio Health Journal.